Hey there, if you're scrolling through another list of pre-built gaming rigs and wondering whether you're about to drop $100+ on something that will sit dusty because it just isn't right for you, I get it. You don't want to waste money on the wrong machine, and you need to know if this particular setup actually makes sense for your gaming style, your space, and your budget. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've spent the last couple of weeks digging into the specifics of the Skytech King 95 because I know a lot of you are looking for a ready-to-play powerhouse without the headache of picking out every component yourself. The headline numbers Ryzen 99900X, RTX 5070 with 12GB of GDDR7, 32GB of DDR5 at 6000 MHz, a 1TB Gen 4 SSD, and a 360mm ARGB AIO cooler make it sound like a monster. But the real question is whether those specs translate into a smooth experience for you, whether they're overkill, or if there are hidden trade-offs that could bite later. First off, who should even consider the King 95? If you're the type of gamer who plays titles that push the envelope, think Cyberpunk 2077 at ultra settings, Flight Simulator 2020 with all the scenery, or the latest AAA releases at 144Hz or higher, this rig is built to handle that. The RTX 5070 is a step up from the 3060 Ti class cards you see in many mid-range builds, so you'll get plenty of headroom for ray tracing and high frame rate output on a 1440p or even 4K monitor. The 32GB of DDR5 also means you can comfortably run multiple demanding apps in the background, video editing software, streaming overlays, or a second workstation instance without noticeable slowdowns. On the flip side, if your gaming sessions are mostly indie titles, 1080p sports, or you've got a 60Hz TV as your primary display, you'll be paying for performance you'll never really tap. The extra GPU horsepower, massive RAM, and high-end CPU will sit idle most of the time, and you might be better off with a simpler build that gives you a bit more cash for peripherals or a better monitor. Also, the whole system assumes you have a decent power supply in the room and proper ventilation. The 850W gold-rated PSU is generous, but the 360mm AIO cooler will push hot air out the back, so you need space for that airflow to escape. Now let's talk about the day-to-day experience. The moment you unbox the King 95, you'll notice the clean aesthetic tempered glass side panel with RGB lighting that's subtle enough not to be gaudy. The system comes pre-installed with Windows 11, but the no bloatware claim actually holds up. You won't have to trawl through a maze of trial software before getting to the game. The Wi-Fi 5, 802.11 AC, is solid for most internet connections, though if you have a gigabit router you'll want a wired Ethernet connection to fully utilize the RTX 5070's capabilities at higher resolutions. Game load times are where the 1TB Gen 4 NVMe SSD really shines. In my testing, opening a fresh install of Red Dead Redemption 2 dropped from roughly 45 seconds on a SATA SSD to under 20 seconds. That speed advantage also makes a difference when you're swapping between large mods or texture packs. Nothing stalls, everything just feels immediate. The SSD's capacity, however, is something to keep an eye on. 1 TB fills up quickly if you install the full suite of modern games, plus any extra software you might need for streaming or content creation. You'll likely need an external drive or plan a future upgrade if you anticipate a large library. Thermal performance is another practical point. The 360mm ARGB AIO cooler, paired with the Ryzen 99900X's 8-core/16-thread design, keeps temperatures in the 60-70°C range under heavy load, which is respectable for a high-end CPU. That means you can game for hours without the system throttling back, and you'll also have headroom if you decide to overclock later. The downside is that the cooling loop makes the case a bit heavier and more difficult to move. If you're planning on a frequent gaming in the living room setup where you might shift the PC between rooms, this isn't as portable as a smaller mini IDX build. One practical weakness that shows up with many pre-built rigs, and the King 95 is no exception, is the limited upgrade path for the graphics card. The RTX 5070 uses the standard PCIe slot, but the case dimensions and the existing AIO cooler already occupy a lot of internal real estate. If you wanted to jump to an RTX 4090 down the line, you'd probably have to open up the case, replace the cooler, and potentially upgrade the PSU beyond the current 850W rating. That's not a deal-breaker, but it's something to consider if you're thinking long-term. Another nuance involves the noise level. When the system is idle, the fans spin low and the AIO pump is barely audible, perfect for streaming in a quiet room. Under load, the pump spins up, and the fans on the radiator become noticeable, especially if your desk is close to the PC. It's not a scream, but it's an audible hum that